Hi. Good morning. So I'll start with how I grew up, because that's the foundation for all of our lives, right? So growing up, my mom was very young when she had me. She was 18. My father was 26. He struggled with substance abuse. And my mom, being as young as she was, did the best she could. She was 18 when I was born, and then my sister was born when she was 20. And you all can use your imagination to imagine the scenarios that happen when you're growing up with parents in that situation, doing the best they individually can, but that's what it was. And so life went on. I went to public schools, and I eventually became best friends with a Jehovah's Witness and a Roman Catholic. And my parents had always told us, my father grew up in the Roman Catholic Church. He went to Catholic schools. He believed in God, so they had always told us, well, we believe in God, but that was basically it. That's all we were told. So as kids, we were like, okay, cool. But we never spoke about God or went to church or anything like that. So that was all a huge mystery to me. So it was me, a Jehovah's Witness, and a Roman Catholic. And we would hang out at school, and they would get into these huge theological debates. We were like 13, 14. And I had no clue what they were talking about. So one day I asked my parents, I said, hey, can I go to church? I want to learn more. I want to even know what they're even talking about, because I have no idea and I'm totally lost. And they said no. I'm assuming because of my father's past in his schools and church growing up. They were not interested. So life continued on, and the circumstances that we were in hardened my heart. So there's a God-shaped hole in all of us, and if you don't have God, you search to fill it with other things. So for me, that was control. I was a teenage girl. I was 15, so you can imagine what I was drawn to. It was mostly controlled through food. I thought if I could only be skinny, I could be happy. It was controlled through, I was a really good student naturally, and I knew that if I could get good grades and I could go to college, I could get a good job.
You got this.
And I could get out of that, and I wouldn't have to raise my kids in that type of environment. So basically, by the time I was 15, I was essentially agnostic, occasionally considered myself an atheist. But I didn't think about spirituality much. Oh, thanks. I didn't think about spirituality much. I really depended on myself. I was incredibly self-reliant, and I was good at it. I was good at getting good grades. I was good at making sure I had things I needed to keep going. So I went to college. I got into UConn for molecular and cellular biology. I had been dating this guy. He broke up with me because he wanted to do more drugs, and I didn't like that. And he said, well, I guess you can't be in my life anymore. So ridiculous. So I come home that summer, and I see one of my friends from high school, and she's like, oh, let's just forget this guy. We're just going to have a good time. We're going to go out dancing. And that's where I met my husband. I met him in a nightclub, which you're not supposed to meet nice guys there, but, you know, the Lord works in mysterious ways. So we got to know each other slowly. He would slowly talk about things from the Bible with me, and I'd be like, yeah, cool, that's great for you, but, you know, fine, like, not for me. Like, that's cool. So we're continuing on in our relationship, and I'm still seeking to fill that hole. And I'm, you know, in college I tried out, I drank, I was at UConn, I mean, that's sort of prominent there. And eventually I started to realize that it was something spiritual, because no amount of thinness, exercise, control through food was doing it. So I said, well, there's something else. So I realized finally that I was spiritually lacking. And I decided to try yoga. I said, you know what, I was going to a gym here in New Milford. I was beating my body, and yoga felt great, the stretching, the relaxation, the breathing, the whole thing. And that led to, doing some Reiki and some New Age type of things. And I'm still not finding fulfillment. I'm having to do yoga every day for 90 minutes a day. And if I miss a day, I'm a mess. That hole is still not being filled. But then I think, well, maybe, if I could leave this corporate job and I could be a yoga teacher and I could literally do yoga for like 5 or 6 hours a day, maybe I would finally fill this void. So I go to a yoga teacher training. And this is where it gets crazy. We were doing something that they call a moving meditation. It's basically you move in whatever way you want and you meditate. And I don't remember thinking about anything in particular. And all of a sudden I feel a white light enter my body. Healed so much trauma that I was carrying deep inside my body. In a room surrounded by Hindu statues and people doing God knows what, God came and got me. They say God leaves the 99 to get the one, right? I don't know why he does that, but he did it for me. And I did not deserve it. Every time that man tried to tell me about God or Jesus, I was like, yeah, whatever. But for some reason, he came and got me. So I remember walking out of that room right after that happened and thinking, like, I was walking down the hallway almost in a daze, and I was like, that was crazy. Deep down I knew that obviously I had been wrong. Obviously there was a God, and obviously that was all very real. But I will tell you something, that the fight for a soul is very real. And I didn't have one of those miraculous, well, just from that moment on, I just turned around and faced Jesus, and that's not what happened. Satan played tricks with my mind. I second-guessed that entire experience for a long time. I would think, man, that didn't happen. Like, I'm crazy. Like, that sounds crazy. But it did happen, and slowly over time, I realized, no, that I'm not crazy. That really did happen, and there has to be a God out there. So the first thing when you're not a believer and you become a believer is you have to overcome your own pride and ego and admit to yourself that you're wrong. And then you have to admit to everybody else that you're wrong. And that's very hard when you're somebody who is proud of their self-reliance, and I can do it myself, and I will take care of myself and make my life what I want it to be. But I did that eventually. I did that. I wrote here Proverbs 3:7-8. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. I was wise in my own eyes, and that was my problem. Turning away from evil and turning towards Jesus, it is so healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. It renews you like nothing else. Nothing else can fill that hole. After that, I had a few more really personal encounters. It's kind of similar to that one with God at pivotal moments of my life when I decided to leave my corporate, when I decided to marry him, when I decided to leave my corporate job and stay home with Julian when he was born. That was terrifying for me because a lot of my identity was wrapped up in my self-reliance, having a good job and having money, and making sure I could have that stability that I didn't have growing up. So that was a huge step. But I heard from God on all of those things. And, we got married, and we had Julian, and he had always said, when we have children, I really want to attend church. And I always agreed. I was always like, yeah, cool, that's fine. Like, you want to do that? Okay. So we started attending Riverview Baptist here in New Milford, and I met Robin and Deborah Hibb there. And I remember one day sitting during one of Pastor Rob's sermons and accepting Jesus in my heart. And I was baptized there and the whole thing. And it's been a slow and steady walk from there. And if anybody wants to hear more, I'm essentially an open book. I can tell you about the other encounters that I had with God if you're interested. When I left my corporate job, he said to me, I got you. And I just felt him hug me. And I knew I would be okay. Relying on him alone. And that's it, so here we are. 4 kids that God gave. I have testimonies about that as well, but that's for another time. Thanks.